This session is about migrating your SQL Server databases from a single instance of SQL Server to a target SQL instance. The procedure that I'm going to show now is actually applicable for migrating from the same version of SQL Server to the same version on the target server as well, or it is also applicable to the upgrade path as well. When I say upgrade path, it could be upgrading from SQL 2014 to 2016 or 2016 to 2017 or 2017 to 2019. The procedure is still the same. When you do the upgrade, the only difference is SQL Server will actually take care of doing an upgrade in the SQL Server master catalog tables. So as soon as the upgrade is complete, the compatibility level of the database engine is still going to be the same version as what it was in the source, but then it's up to the DBAs or whoever manages the database to change the compatibility level from the current version to the upgraded version. So that's the only difference, but apart from it, the procedure is still going to be the same, and there are no further changes with it. So if you see here, this is where I have my source and target servers. I have the RAM demo DB as my source database server, and then I have a target database server called MIG target DB, and this MIG target DB is a database server that's been provisioned through ERA. So that's where ERA actually comes into picture during the migration itself. So if you see here, this target database server was provisioned today, and in a typical customer environments, in typical organizations, provisioning of a DB server takes close to at least a week, or at least 2 to 4 days. With ERA, the provisioning of a database server is only around 23 minutes. And then if you see the last step here, wherein it registers the database server, this is where you actually create a time machine for the database server as well, which helps you with your data protection needs. So that's how I actually built my target server using ERA, and it also gives me the flexibility of defining the SLAs for data retention policies. So if you see here, so I have a demo, I have a source database server, and I have a target database server. So the next step now is to migrate the databases on the source server to the target server. Now, how do I accomplish this? You can accomplish it in different ways. So with the backup and restore, you could use plain vanilla SQL Management Studio to do it. But if you are talking about large database servers which have more than 10 to 20 database in it, it's very hard to use Management Studio to migrate one database at a time. So you would ideally need to have some kind of scripting automation to be built in to do these migrations. So what I have done is I have actually built a partial script that basically takes backups of the database servers on the source server and then does a restore onto the target database server. So as part of the migration, there are also certain other items that you need to take care of, pretty much around SQL Server logins or database logins. You have the maintenance plans, you have the SQL Server jobs, you have any link server definitions that you also want to be migrated to the target server. So all this is also taken care by the partial script itself. So one prerequisite of doing the migration via the backup and restore scripts are you need to have a shared folder for where the backups can reside, and that shared folder should also be accessible by the target server so that it can take the backup files from there and do the restore. So what I've done is let me just remote login to the source database server. So 10.51.141.162 is my source SQL server. So let me just remote login there, and then what I've done is I've actually created a target. I've actually created a shared folder on the target server, on the target SQL server, which is my 10.51.141.152. So I've created a folder there called SQL target, and if you look at the properties of that folder, this folder should actually be accessible to both the accounts that actually run the SQL Server services. What I mean is, whatever domain account that you use for running SQL Server here and in the target SQL Server should have access to that folder, right? It should be able to write and read into that folder. So that's a prerequisite, so that both backups and restore processes can access that folder to put the files and get the files out, right? So that's once you have that prerequisite, I think we are all set to run the backup and the restore. So as I said earlier, what I've done is I've built a PowerShell script that basically it's a very simple script that what it does is it basically takes few parameters as input. When I say parameters, it takes the SQL Server instance name, it takes the backup path, and then it also takes what databases that you want to back it up, right? You can provide multiple backups, multiple database names with the comma separation, so that it takes backup of all this. So once you have that input, I basically build a script, I basically loop it in and then build a SQL Server equivalent backup command to run the backups. Similarly, once everything is done, the database backup files will actually reside in the shared folder that I've already created on the target server, right? And that's what it's going to reside here. So let's get started with taking the backups. So apart from the backups, you also see there's some more commands here that basically helps me with taking the logins from the source SQL Server as well, right? There is a commandlet called DBA logins that you can install as part of PowerShell itself. So let me just open up my PowerShell window here, and then let me just clear this up. And then my backup script is actually on the C drive of the source machine, so it's called backup.ps1. So I'll probably execute that backup.ps1, and then it is asking for the source server. So let me just copy my source instance name, which is this, go back to my PowerShell window, paste it here, and then it is asking for the backup path. So this is the shared path that I was talking about. I'll take the shared path, and then I'll copy it here, and then it is asking me for the database to be backed up. So I'll say I want to just right now backup this one database, but if you have more than one DB, you just put a comma and then enter the name of the other databases. I'll hit enter, and then I'll hit enter, and then basically right now it's taking a backup here. As you would see, the backup is complete. Now I go back to the shared folder again and see when the backup was taken, right? So this is my shared folder. So if you see in the shared folder under this, you see that the backup file was just created at 6:05 p.m., which is also the server time here. So I have the backup file, and I also have created the login script. So the next step is basically to run the restore on the target server. So I go back to my restore server, which is the 10.51.141.152, and then in here I also have a restore script similar to a backup script, right? So here what I'm going to do is, if you see here, I basically take certain parameters. I take the target instance name, the backup path, and all the databases that I want to restore, and then I build a restore command by looping in using the try catch method here, right? So I basically loop in and restore each database at a time. So my restore script also is on the C drive of the target server. So I see here I have the restore script here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the restore script from here, and then it is basically asking me for some of the parameters in terms of the target, this one. So I'll just say that's my target server instance name is this. So I'll copy that, and then it's asking for the backup path. So that's my backup path. So sorry. So I'll copy the backup path here, and then it is asking me for the database that I need to restore. So that's going to be run demo db. I'll press enter, and then again enter, and then now it basically has done the restore part of it, and then it was also copied some of the logins and all of that. So now how do I verify that? I'll just do a refresh of my databases here, right. And then if you see here, I have the RAM demo DB on my target server. Now once I have the databases restored, the next step is to make sure that there is data protection for these databases. How do I ensure that there is data protection? So I go back to era, right. That's where I would now register my target server, right. So I say register, I say a single node database, I say Microsoft SQL Server, which is my this, and then I say not registered, or I'll say a registered server, and then I'll specify my target VM, and then it basically starts discovering the databases, and then that's how you basically register your so I have the RAM demo DB here, which I just restored onto the server. I check this and it basically gives me the database name in error. I just say this is just to differentiate, I'll just make it as RES. I'll say next. It's basically discovering the recovery model of the database. It's a full recovery model, and I'll say I need a bronze SLA for it. I need 1 snapshot per day, 30 minutes log catch-ups, and then I basically say register. That way I am also protecting my databases. So I basically have used ERA to do the provisioning, and then I have also used ERA to register my database on ERA, so that the data protection needs are also enabled. So I'll click the register button, and then an operation gets submitted. So this will take around maybe around 5 to 7 minutes to register the database. So that's all I actually wanted to show today in terms of how you can accomplish an end-to-end backup and restore migration of a SQL Server database from either databases being on other platforms other than our AHV, right? It could be on physical machines, and then you're migrating it onto Nutanix, and using ERA to pretty much do most of the stuff in terms of provisioning database protection needs. And also in the future you might probably use ERA to do the patching as well. Hope you enjoyed this session, and hope you enjoyed looking at those backup and restore scripts as well, which is mostly written in PowerShell, right? Thank you.